Hey, welcome to the Sharpe Way Show. So glad you could join me this evening. It is 7 p.m. on the East Coast, and I'm here. I'm on time this time. You guys can't get mad at me. So I did show up on time. I appreciate you guys also showing up on time. And as always, once you get here, please help me out. Like, comment, share. Do it right away. Put a comment up there, share, and like it so that people know that we're out there and people will, of course, jump on board. The topic that I wanted to talk about this evening is diversity. I've thought about this for a while, but I'm doing diversity training. I do some of it for a living. So those, my day job, that's some things I do, corporate training. Done a lot of it in the past, a bit more of a requirement for it now, but I don't do that much of it. And there are many reasons why I don't do that much of it. Most diversity training, for those of you who may have been through it, is literally terrible. Just nothing but bad, hurts organizations, makes people feel bad, makes people angry, doesn't actually help. Most of it. That's not all of it, to be forward with you. I'm not, there are some people who know exactly what they're doing and they do it very well. Some do. What diversity training should be about is not about looking at everybody through a specific prism, meaning not looking at everyone through either gender or race or whatever the ethnic background, whatever the case may be, but instead having an environment that is open and all about emotional intelligence. If you do that well, you can have a better environment and you will by default eventually have a more diverse environment. That will happen by default. If you're focusing more on those issues with your leadership and your hiring practices too, right? You can make that happen. You can have a better, more diverse organization. You might say, Larry, how do you know that? Well, when I teach it for a living. And the second thing is, if any of you paid attention to my campaign in 2018, there was an organization, I think it was called City and State, I think, actually checked out every single campaign. There were 5 campaigns running to see which was the most diverse. And which was the most diverse? Mine. I didn't have a quota system. I didn't have a link to this or a link to that. I had none of that. I had an open mindset that I wanted to get a good environment. Didn't matter if you were male, female, straight, gay, whatever. Didn't matter. Come on in. All good. And we had the most diverse campaign team. That can be done without having to force the issues. It may take some time depending upon how your organization is. But not only that, you'll also not just be checking a box, which is what many people have done in the past, but you'll also be getting the right people on board, which is more important, right? You want the right people on board and you want diversity. Very often, diversity in the I guess, recent past has been able to give women a big leg up, which is a good thing. And to be forward, it isn't only because of diversity. It's also because if you've seen the numbers, the talent pool in America is heavily female, just is. More women are graduating from college. More women are getting credentialed. More women are getting degrees. Most women are just there. The talent is there. Heavily more women than males when it comes to things like that. That's what's happening. So I'm totally happy about that, right? That's a good thing. So I think you find that if you look at it that way and go for the best talent and you're more open in how you think, you will find better. I want to cover 2 specific videos. One of them is a short one that they're both about Netflix. Netflix, by the way, is not doing as well as it could be doing recently, but it spends a lot of money on diversity training and diversity. They actually have a D&I unit, which is, for those who don't know, D&I is Diversity and Inclusivity Unit. Wow. But what it does, and the piece that I want to bring up for those of you who are interested in this, is most people who worry about diversity and fear racism, the vast majority think the answer is socialism. Most of them do. The vast majority think, well, we got to be more socialist. We have to be less individualistic. Yet the companies that are doing the best work are massive capitalist companies like Netflix and such, $25 billion organizations. They're actually doing some of the biggest work in this field. So I don't know. Capitalism seems to be helping diversity too. I don't think it's a socialism thing. Anyway, let me show you this. I think you'll enjoy it. I'll give you my 2 cents on this video and where it's going. And I think you will enjoy it. This is kind of a promo for them.
What we have learned about diversity and inclusion is that while it's the right thing to do for sure, it is also responsible for our ability to innovate.
Now, they're saying that right now because of how things working right now in Netflix. However, there isn't necessarily there isn't necessarily evidence yet. We will find out whether there is, whether this type of diversity is actually going to be successful, because there is a difference in diversity compared to just trying to check a box versus getting actual differences in thought. That's the key. If everyone thinks similarly, that's not helpful.
I'm Verna Myers, VP of Inclusion Strategy for Netflix.
Yes, that's a thing.
I've thought a lot about what sort of motivates me and has motivated me over this time.
She, by the way, is one of the most famous D&I people in the country. I don't know if some of you don't probably know who she is, but when it comes to D&I, she's one of the most famous in the country, wrote many books. Harvard did a video on her, all that kind of stuff.
To work on issues of diversity, inclusion, equity, and justice. And I can trace it back really to being 8 years old. It was actually...
See, the diversity piece, I agree with. I think diversity is an issue. But when you start adding in the pieces of injustice and equity, these are the pieces that in a corporate world don't always go over well, right? Diversity is valuable. There's no doubt it is. Diversity is valuable. That's fact. If you can get a diversity of thought with unity of purpose, the odds of your success go up. Doesn't mean you're going to be successful, but the odds absolutely go up if you can get those two things, diversity of thought with unity of purpose. That can give you an edge, but just checking a box, I don't think there's any data that shows that's going to work.
The day before my 8th birthday and Martin Luther King was assassinated. From that moment, it became like, I'm going to do the thing that King wanted, which is to uphold community and justice and fairness. Trending now. My team.
If you find the fairness piece, and for those of you who delved into this world, the fairness piece is a critical word, a word that a lot of people care about this, right? Hold on. Sky, hold on. There's someone saying this real fast. I want to touch this. Sky says, seriously cannot stand watching interrupt videos constantly. I'll have to go watch them alone to even know what they're trying to say. Sky, then go watch the video. I'm here giving comments on the video. That's why I'm doing it. If you don't like it, go watch the video. It's right there. You see, it says Sowing the Seeds, Inclusion Takes Roots at Netflix. It's on YouTube. Just go watch the video. I'm not mad at you. I don't know why you're complaining. If you want to watch the video, watch the video. You shouldn't be here. You should be watching the video. But please come back. Once you're done, please come back.
Team's vision is to equip everyone with a diversity lens, which is to say that as they do their job, they're thinking about who's not here.
Now, that's not necessarily a bad idea, right? They're thinking about who's not here. This is not a bad way of thinking, but I don't want you, if you're doing this in your own work, in your own world, in whatever the case may be, I don't want you to just be thinking who's not here, again, for the sake of a checkbox. I want you to start thinking to yourself, what way what could I be missing? That's the critical way for you as a leader, as a business person, anything, to be looking, what am I missing, right? Am I missing something? And those of you who worked with me, I will very often say that. Am I missing something here? What am I missing? And if that can be an individual, get that individual. It's 100% true. That is a good way of looking at it for your own success in life. Again, not just for a checkbox.
We gathering all the perspectives. We are all deserving of opportunity.
Action. I think if we are to ever...
The problem that I have here is you will hear a lot of people heavily on the left, but on the right too, but heavily on the left, talk about the idea of deserving something. Don't you deserve the best healthcare? Don't you deserve an opportunity? We all deserve something. That's a problematic word for me, because who decides who deserves what? Do we all deserve everything? Who makes that decision on deserving? That's a worry that I have, right? That is a worry I have about that. Yes.
Realize our ambitions around the world, we have to tell stories that reflect the population.
Now, this is where my capitalism piece pops in. Do you think that people at Netflix were like, you know what we need? Diversity. No, they were like, we got to sell our stuff all over the world. We better have some diversity. Capitalism, and it's going to sound terrible for you socialist guys, you more left people watching, please understand something. Capitalism is what made them care. And there were two important reasons why they did. Number one was competition, and number two was growth, both based upon a capitalistic environment. They want to grow and get outside and go into other countries and other areas. So we better have a diverse group of people so we can make stuff that other people want to watch, so we can make money. I know, sounds crazy, but you wind up helping people because the money actually is the catalyst to get you to do stuff. But it's a second piece, competition. You see it, Disney Plus and Paramount and blah, 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 right? Whatever the thing is, right? They want, these other things are popping up. Well, they figure, how do we get an edge over our competition? Diversity of thought with unity of purpose, right? Diversity of thought with unity of purpose. They realized their team had to change. So capitalism is what pushed this, not socialism.
Netflix has the first woman ever nominated as a cinematographer.
Yes.
The first trans director ever nominated for an Academy Award.
Now, do you think that Netflix actually, that the people there who are at the top go, you know what we need? The first trans woman for this, no. What they're thinking, and I'm not trying to put Netflix down. I'm telling you what I think they really thought. They thought, if we do this, that will happen. And man, what great branding. We'll make a video about it. And they did. This is the video, right? Like they said, here's a branding piece we could make. Now you might go, Larry, that is a terrible reason to have the first trans this, or the first, woman that, or the first minority this. That's a terrible reason. Maybe, but I'd rather be the terrible reason guy who gets the shot at being great than not get a shot at being great. So this is I'm actually doing a pitch for capitalism in helping with diversity. It actually does, as people think it doesn't, but it does. And here's the other part. If Netflix is doing it, it's not forcing anyone else to do it. Other people will either see this work or they won't. If they see it working, then they'll do more. If not, then they won't. That's how it'll work, right? If I don't know how diverse Disney is, for the sake of argument, just because it makes my story good, they're not. I don't know if it's true. If they see Netflix doing this and it working, they're going to jump on board, aren't they? Yeah, wow, what are we doing? We got to diversify too so we can rock and roll and beat Netflix. And again, I know someone might say that's terrible. All I'm saying is it's moving forward, right? She brought up Dr. King. What made one of the most important pieces, what was one of the most important pieces of the civil rights movement? Not the only, but one of the most. It was a bus strike. It was a bus strike. It was, we can't make money if we don't keep the black people happy because they ride our bus. You know what? We better make the black people happy. Not because they cared about black people. They didn't. But they care about money. So sorry about that. They did care about money. That's for sure. So they did. So I am giving you a bit of a push for capitalism.
When Laverne Cox is nominated for an Emmy, the reason why those moments excite me is they are irrevocable moments of advancement. In order for us to tell those stories, we have to have inclusion on screen.
And that's what he's talking about. Now, it sounds good, I know, but what he's saying is we have to tell these stories so that we can do what we need to do to make that happen. We have to have more diverse people, and boom, now you start hiring for a goal. Many of you have asked me, Larry, how do I organize? How do I make this happen? And I always say the first thing, mission first, goal first. If your goal is to sell to a diverse audience and that's your goal, what are you going to do? You're going to hire diverse people because your goal is to sell to a diverse audience. Of course, that's just what anybody would say. And now you start changing. Your culture begins to change.
The best way to have it on screen is to have it in writers' rooms. And The best way to have it in writers' rooms is to have it in our internal community.
There we go.
I have never felt as empowered anywhere as I.
Now, this piece is important too. Why is she feels empowered here? And please listen to what she's saying when she says she feels empowered here.
Feel at Netflix. It's wild to me.
Wild.
You know, it's like when you find a place that actually values your opinion. Mm-hmm. And I've had some big titles at other places.
Now, hear what she just said. She said, when you find a place that actually values your opinion. I've had big titles in other places. Her words. So when she was someplace else, she had a nice title. But I'm going to tell you what I believe to be true, and I could be wrong, but from what she's saying, I believe this. She was a checkbox in those other places. She was, oh, you're a woman and you're black? Love it. We'll hire you and check 2 boxes. And you might go, Larry, that sounds cruel. You're being mean. No, that's how the world actually works. I know. I live in this world. And those of you who are watching and listening in the business world, you know what I'm saying is true. That's simply a fact. It's how it works. They don't want to tell you that, but it's true. They probably did this to this lovely person who's clearly savvy and intelligent and smart and getting stuff done. Otherwise, she wouldn't feel this way now. But why did Netflix care? Because Netflix actually needed her. They actually needed her brain. They didn't check a box for her. They were like, we got to make some stuff that's going to make some sense so we can make some money. Oh, she's smart and savvy and will know stuff. Let's pay her to make sure we can make some stuff happen. And clearly she's doing a job. I'm clearly, right? So capitalism is often the reason for someone to shine. Now, I know someone just recently, Tony just said, that's clearly exploiting people. I disagree completely, Tony. When they were checking a box with her, that's exploiting. When she wasn't feeling like she was empowered and valuable, that's exploiting. Look at her face. She's not being exploited now. Now people are valuing her. They're valuing her because they need her to help them make money, which I know sounds terrible to some of you. But that's what actually did it. Right? That's what actually did it. They needed to make money, and she knew, so bring her aboard. That's not exploiting. The checkbox was. That was exploiting.
But I've never felt as empowered as I do here.
There we go.
And so the freedom of that, each of us as responsible people within the organization, to allow for the kind of difference that it's going to require to let more Bozemas in the door.
Well, my other point to realize is, as a general rule, you want to have an environment that people are heard in. Because if people are heard, then they feel like they're part of the team and they care and they give their full. Every one of you who's been around more than 10 years has had a job where you were like, whatevs, I'm just getting my paycheck and whatevs. And you've had a job that you cared about and you put your heart in and you really cared about it. Well, when you feel like someone needs you, that's what you do.
Is absolutely necessary. This is not about policy. This is not about a strategy bet. This is about each of us knowing that when we're making.
And I would disagree completely with her. It absolutely is about policy. That she's incorrect. It's totally about policy. Am I trying to move my company forward in 2 ways? One, am I trying to have, without question, the most diversity of thought with the unity of purpose, regardless of gender or sexual preference or sexual orientation or ethnic background or race, but I want to have diversity of thought like nothing else. If I want that, it's a policy. It's where do I hunt to get people?
Hiring decisions that we're not just talking about the people I could have a drink with. It's the people that challenge you, the ones who scare you a little bit. Those are the ones that we need in the door.
There is an enormous amount of coordinated effort that is necessary to make true cultural progress.
Now, this is an issue too, right? She's correct here. You can't just all of a sudden say, hey, we want to move into the Hispanic market. Let's hire a bunch of, Hispanic people, right? That sounds good. You also have to have a culture of emotional intelligence. And I bring this up constantly. And that is one very important thing. And you hear me say this always, and this is a libertarian ideal. Yes, I'm bringing capitalism and libertarianism into diversity. Yes, I am. This is a libertarian ideal. And the ideal is, I'm not you. That we are separate, and different people. And I shouldn't assume that you think like me, that you have my background, that you want the same things that I want. I should never assume that. I should assume that you're a different person with different wants and different needs and different backgrounds. If you have a culture to where all your leadership thinks that way, you will have a good culture within your organization, period. Just people are different. That's all. Otherwise, how am I supposed to learn everybody's culture? I can't. How am I going to, fall into a place where, I don't culturally appropriate or whatever the issue is? I can't, and you shouldn't be concerned. And you don't care about cultural appropriation. You even get away from any microaggressions or whatever the issue is that you're having. If everybody feels like, okay, I respect you for you. You be you, I'll be me, and we're going to the same place because we got a similar job. That's the issue, right? That's the issue. If you feel that way, now you can have a good culture. And that's not a socialist. A socialist mindset is everyone's the same. I'm saying we're all different. It's not good or bad. It's different, right? Someone's going to be an amazing marketer and someone's going to suck at being a marketer. It doesn't matter whether they're male or female, whatever. Some people are better at other things. Just how it works.
One, you got to go looking for the people that you've been missing. Two, you got to attract them to our environment.
Also true.
Three, you're going to have to also create pipelines and develop new talent that.
But this part is actually relatively easy, right? As a general idea, the pipeline will create itself if you have people who stay, right? If people stay, if you don't have many women in your, if you don't have many women in your company, as an example, and you think you should have more women because you're missing that, great, you hire a woman. Nice, good for you. But if she leaves, can you hire another woman again? That's a problem in your organization. If she stays, it goes, oh yeah, I like it here. You'll have more come.
And ultimately come to our company. But the most crucial thing is that the people you bring in find a home in this environment.
Now, here's the problem with that. While that's wonderful, look at how they're showing everyone. You can only do that in a big organization. That's it. You can't do this in a mom and pop joint. You can't do this if you got 4 employees. You got 4,000 employees? Yeah, you can. Absolutely. You're making what Netflix last year made like $25 billion? Yes, absolutely you can. Sure, half your people can work from home or whatever, you can. Making that extra cash in a capitalist society allows you to do the investments that are required to get the right people on board. Because it's the second piece. For those of you who have companies, you know what I'm talking about. Hiring takes a lot of time, a lot of money, and if you fail and you do a bad hire, it sets you back for a long time. When you have 4,000 employees, you can absorb it. When you got 4, it can be devastating. It can be devastating. So size in this case does matter. Big companies in this case can often do better.
We were thinking about the future of Netflix and the gaps that we currently have when it comes to diversity and the systemic issues that have traditionally shut folks out, and we dismantle those. We really focus on guiding.
But why did they do that? I keep saying, good. Why? Why did Netflix go, you know what? Let's dismantle stuff. Because they just said we had problems, right? We were not doing things right. Why? Was it because they became socially conscious all of a sudden? No. It's because the market told them to. Market forces told them to diversify. So they did. And they gained so much money, they were able to do so. Capitalism made this possible. It made it possible.
Assessing our recruiters and researchers so that they can create a very equitable interview process. How are we putting ourselves in front of talent and really exposing folks to opportunities at Netflix? It's really important that we think about future pipelining and what Netflix could look like 5 years, 10 years.
Now, here's the one problem that you can have here, right? The one problem you can have here is you can go to a point to where now you start stereotyping. Now you're like, oh, we have to go get the woman, we have to go get the black guy, we've got to get the Asian people. That can happen. And that's the thing you've got to worry about. If you start to move towards that level, you can make it much more to a point where you wind up hurting yourself in the long run. So there is a balance here.
20 years from now, and that we are opening the door for underrepresented folks, because once we open the door for them, they will turn around and open the door for others.
And that was my point she's made. Exactly. Once you have someone stay and go, yeah, I can find a home here, you will find other people of whatever group that person is a member of, they'll begin to join also. But the point is, you don't want to, while you want to change your culture to be better, you also don't want a culture shock, because when a culture shock happens, your company doesn't realize who it is anymore. So you got to make sure not only do they fit in the idea that they are diverse and different in thought process, but also that they fit with your company also, whatever your company culture is or whatever you want it to be, right? That's the issue, right? So say Mr. Dayton here decides, you know what I want company to be? I want it to be more about getting, younger people and doing more work for younger couples. That's what he decides is right. Well, maybe he should hire some younger people, right? To make sure that they understand and they can communicate better. But if he hires younger guys and they leave, well, then maybe he's doing something wrong. He's got an environment to where they're not happy. But if he starts hiring them and they stay, one of the things is true. Either he was hiring the wrong people or he had an environment to which they didn't feel comfortable in. And he can learn and decide. And he might go, you know what? It was a bad idea. I don't want the young people anymore. And that's okay too. But what if he all of a sudden decides, I want to do this, and he hires a whole bunch of young people? You're going to have a different culture overnight. You might go, Larry, that kind of change is good. It isn't. That will create a culture war with your old salty dogs and your newbies. And when you have the noobs and the salty dogs fight, it's not good. It's not good at all. So you do want to make sure you do this in a time frame that makes sense for your company.
Sometimes it's about hiring individuals who have an entrepreneurial spirit and letting them loose.
Diversity of thought.
I spent about 4.5 years in Singapore.
So how do you, as a small company, have people come in and have an entrepreneurial spirit and let them loose? That's hard. For those of you who work with me on my campaigns and such, I'm very much that way. I'm all about, all right, let's do it. I'm all about that, right? All about that all the time. This can be a whole lot tougher though in a smaller company.
And it was the first time that my wife and I had experienced life as just regular people without the racism that we had become accustomed to in America. I read The Color of Money by Mehrsa Baradaran, and after I finished reading it, contacted a number of bankers, and really started to put together this story about how Black financial institutions could really start to close the racial wealth gap. You've got people who need to experience the world in a more fair and equitable way. I'm an HR.
And there is the issue, right? You're trying to get people to do things in a fair and equitable way. I get that. It's a great goal. I like that goal. It's nice. But you have to do it in a way that is also fair to everyone else, right? You've got to do it in a slow way that everyone else can get it also. The goal has to be clear for everyone. It has to be a reason behind it. I got to be behind it, right? I got to be behind it. So I hope that was interesting. I want to grab some comments if I can. A lot of you guys are commenting on this. I hope it's an interesting topic. I've got more. I want to show you something else. This is an actual video from that same woman from Harvard. Harvard, kissed her butt like she was just the greatest thing in the world. And anyway, Mary J says, so great to hear about your success style of training. It does work well, right? If you do it right, it absolutely can work well. You want to make sure that you're having diverse groups of people and people who also don't feel alienated. That's the other issue. You can create an environment to where other people feel alienated. The biggest issue in any organization that isn't diverse, whether that's religious, whether that's ethnic background, gender, is that the minority, whatever the minority is, can very often feel like the other, like they're not part of the team. That's the biggest issue that they deal with. And when they feel like they're not part of the team, they're the other, they don't talk, or they stress, or they try to pump their chest up, or they become aggressive, or whatever it is. And if any of you have been in that situation, you know what I mean. You're the only person of this group. Now, we often talk about race all the time. It's race too, but it could also be gender. It could be you're the only woman around. Could be in a religious situation, you're the only persons of a certain, ethnic background or religion. Could be that too. If you are that and you feel like you're the other, that's when things go bad. So if you're respecting that concept you find out everything gets better. Yes. So Tom says, most diverse. Why doesn't that surprise me about Larry? Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. Yes, absolutely. Michelle says, what is happening now, all the blame is making even me look at race before I speak. Yes. And I have never looked or paid attention to race in my life. The way things are going now is dividing us more. That's one of the reasons why I brought this up, Michelle, right? People always ask me to talk about race all the time. I mean, like every day someone tweets me or reaches out to me or sends me an email or something saying, you got to talk about this race thing. I don't want to be the race guy. But at the same time, I do want to have a place where we can just talk about it and not get angry at each other and just talk about the realities and the real value of it and the things that aren't valuable about it. We can have those conversations. So thank you, Michelle, for that. Brandon says, diversity is essentially racism in our modern affirmative action program. Watch Thomas Sowell about it. He's a genius, but you are right. Women are most of the talent pool in today's workplace. It's true. There are so many women rocking it right now compared to what they were in the past. And one of the reasons is the market. That's one of the reasons. What happened back in the 80s and 90s, for those of you who may not remember this or weren't around in the business world at that time, is there was bad discrimination against women moving into the highest levels of the C-suite, the CEO, CFO, CMO, that's called the C-suite. And so what happened? Well, they went on their own and became entrepreneurs, and you had a massive increase in female entrepreneurs. Now, that's a bad reason for you to have to go out on your own because you can't make it someplace else because they won't give you the chance. That's a crappy reason. It really is. But the outcome itself was actually a good outcome. You found many talented women start their own businesses, become their own leaders, do all types of things, and also make mistakes. And one of those mistakes that we found, if you look back in those days, again, some of you may have gray hair like me, is a lot of time a woman would go on her own and do one of two things: hire only women or no women. Many women, when they went out on their own, 80s, 90s, didn't learn their own lessons. They either hired only women because I'm going to show them, or they went, I don't trust women because they were always against me and they only hired men. That trend is kind of gone now, but that was a thing for a while. And they learned, okay, this is a bad idea. I probably shouldn't do that. I should also be diverse in my hiring. And I think that has made many more talented and successful and credentialed women in our workforce than we've ever had. So a lot of our value is absolutely that. But to your point about affirmative action, I don't want to hire you because you check a box. I want to hire you because I need you. So if your mindset is correct, you will hire the right people. And I'll give you a crazy example of just having the right mindset. I was consulting with a company in Utah about, 4 or 5 years ago. I don't remember how long, maybe more, 6 years ago, maybe. I was consulting with a company in Utah. And at that time in Utah, and it may still be true, I don't even know, but you could fire somebody because they were gay. That was legal in Utah at the time. And again, maybe still, I don't know Utah law anymore if it's changed. But so we just had a policy that we didn't care if you were gay or not. Didn't matter. It didn't matter. So we had some openly gay people in the company, and they told other gay people in their community, hey, these guys will hire you, and they don't care if you're gay or not. They're like, yeah, we don't care. And we had amazing gay and lesbian talent for not extra prices. I mean, they could have gotten higher salaries someplace else, but they came to us. I wasn't saying, man, I sure wish I had 3 gay people. I wasn't saying that. I didn't care. But they knew our environment. Other people told them of our environment, and they came. And we wind up having great talent at a lower salary than they could have gotten someplace else because they felt open here to what that other woman said in the video. They felt heard because they were. They felt desired because they were. They felt valued because they were. So they wanted to be here. So thank you for that, Brandon. I appreciate that. So, all right. See if I can go through here. Andrew says, socialism and communism is never the answer. I happen to agree. Yes, absolutely. I agree. So, all right. See if I can grab here. Wade says, we can be social voluntarily. We shouldn't allow government to drive. They reckon every time. I agree. And I think people will, Wade, particularly if you're trying to grow big. It becomes the only way to compete. So you'll do it naturally, but you'll do it because you want to, not because government tells you to, right? I do think that's true. So Tommy says, support Larry by donating. Like, love, share, take the polls. Yes. Tommy Brown's correct. Thank you, Tommy. You should absolutely do that. 100%. We should absolutely do that. And if you can, please, again, as always, like, comment, share. Take the police accountability survey. It's more important now than ever, right? We just had the Chauvin case, George Floyd case. What do you think about police accountability? Take the survey. It's an interesting survey. Answer questions about 5 minutes. Finish it. And when you're done taking it, click the link, by the way, that's in the description. Click that link. When you're done taking it, share it. Let people know, hey, here's where I stand. Where do you stand? It's actually a very cool thing to do. Please do that. It makes my sponsors happy. And if you've got some cash, you can handle, throw it my way. Patreon.com/Sharpe, $10, $25, whatever you can spare. Awesome. It helps us to keep making this show, to get more equipment, to make it better, stronger, faster. Thank you for that, Tommy. I appreciate that. That shout out. I do appreciate it here. Yes. All right. What happened to having to earn? This is my point with deserve, Danny. You've hit it perfectly. That is my worry about that phrase deserve. That word deserve. When you start talking about when you start talking about deserve, it becomes a problem, right? You want to make sure that everybody should have access. I think that's true. I mean, that's a better way. Everyone should have access to certain things. I think that's true. But once you hit the deserve, it becomes a problem. So absolutely, you should be able to earn. Ty says, I never asked about asked you about your thoughts on this inclusion, obsession, and fixation. It's a big deal. And I understand it. I do. The problem is the pendulum will swing so far. And what winds up happening is the pendulum was already swinging. For those of you who didn't notice, it was already happening. And women are the perfect example of this. There were more and more women who were doing great things in our country, more and more doing it already. It was already going that way. And now we've really made that push into inclusion. One of the reasons I think why, Ty, is because of globalization. That's one reason. And the other reason is it's a mission, and it's the new mission that people are on. I do think it's those two things, but there is some value to it. I get it. I'm not obsessed by it. I'm not, but I talk about it because it can be good and helpful, and we should probably move towards it. So, yes. All right. See if I can go through here if I can. Grabbing up. Wait, thank you for that. Ty then says, capitalism is the only model of money making that truly helps those at the bottom have any real opportunity at making a fortune at the highest ceiling or decent living at worst. It's true as long as we don't allow it to become crony capitalism. And that's kind of where we've gone in many ways, where the big companies become synonymous with government. I'm saying that synonymous is the wrong word. Well, kind of it is. Yeah. They become synonymous with government. Big corporations become that. They become symbiotic is what I was thinking about, but synonymous also works. So they become that, and then the little guy gets crushed. So we have to make sure we're not allowing that corporate government marriage, right? If we can avoid that, now we're good. Tom says, honestly, I'm all for capitalism pushing diversity. I don't have a problem with it that way. Plus, it makes socialists mad when you say it because of capitalism, so bonus. And that's it, Tom. I think, and I say this all the time, right? I think in America, you can see it by, it's going to sound crazy, Jim Crow, right? Segregation in the South. If people wouldn't normally diversify, why have laws? Why have laws? You had to have laws in the South saying you must segregate. Government had to step in and say, no, black people here, white people here. Because if government didn't step in, we would on our own integrate. Because that's what humans do. We would naturally, over time, integrate. That's how it works. So you have to create laws to stop us. Because things like capitalism will push us forward. You tell me there's going to be some diner owner who can't afford his rent or can't pay his bank note and says, man, black people, they got money too. They like sandwiches. Why don't I let them come eat at my diner so I can make some money and pay my bank note? Of course, some diner owner would have done that. And then once he started doing it, others go, oh, black people like sandwiches and have money. You should come to my diner now. And all of a sudden, we would have naturally over time integrated. How do I know that? I'll tell you how I know that. The South now in America is more integrated than the North is. School districts, neighborhoods, it's more integrated than the North is. The North never had laws. We had culture. That was worse. But yes, but as soon as it was done, boom, they integrated. Immediately, they integrated. So anyway, that was interesting. All right, I'll see here. Tim O'Connor says, capitalism rocks the diversity. The government has ruined diversity over and over. I think there is some of that. Absolutely. Yes, I think that's true. Tim says, all socialism eventually becomes mandatory. That's true. Let me grab this other video if I could. This one is her being interviewed by Harvard Business Review, like she is the greatest thing in the world. And the issue is, we don't know if what she's doing is actually working. If you look at the news recently, Netflix not doing so well. You know, they were supposed to get like 6 million new subscribers this quarter. They got like 3. They didn't make their numbers. Their stock price is going down. So I don't know if it's working. Their response is, well, it's production, delays. But isn't everybody having production delays? Not just Netflix. Disney Plus should be having those same delays, right? I mean, if COVID's affecting Netflix, it's got to be affecting Disney Plus and Paramount and Hulu and whatever, right? It's got to be affecting all of them. Amazon Prime, it should be affecting all of them. So I'm not sure that's true. I don't know if this is working, is my point, but she is the greatest thing in the world.
Verna Myers is the VP of Inclusion Strategy at Netflix. She's responsible for integrating cultural diversity, inclusion, and equity into all aspects of the company's worldwide operations. In addition to founding the Verna Myers Company, she's a Harvard-trained lawyer and the author of 2 books, Moving Diversity Forward, How to Go From Well-Meaning to Well-Doing, and What If I Say the Wrong Thing? 25 Habits for Culturally Effective People.
There we go.
And if you haven't seen it already, Verna's TED Talk, How to Overcome Our Biases, Walk Boldly Toward Them, has been viewed over 3 million times.
3 million times.
Welcome to the show.
This is her. And you can tell that this is what she means by changing culture. You can see it says Verna Myers Netflix, and she puts her pronouns there, right? That's a thing you see in a lot of places. The problem I have with putting the pronouns there is most people are doing it just to virtue signal. That's the issue. They're doing it to virtue signal.
So good to be here. Hi, Octavia. How are you?
I'm great, and thank you for being with us today. So, Verna, this year has been a year unlike any other. And with the pressure to address racial inequities, many companies have rushed to hire diversity leaders or elevate existing leaders to the position.
This is true. The diversity leaders are now a thing people are rushing to. But why? I'll go back to it. Why? Why are they doing it? Because they want to be seen a certain way so that they can move their companies forward.
It's a high demand role, and one that has been victim to high turnover due to high expectations and lack of resources.
Now, high turnover, she says due to expectations and lack of resources. I'm not sure that's 100% true. It's kind of true, but not 100% true. There are 2 issues with high turnover in diversity. One of them is, sadly, a lot of companies are doing it only for brand value. They don't want the person to succeed. They don't care if they succeed. They want them to sit in a room, I guess, don't get sued, and do some HR work. I know that sounds horrible, but it's what some companies want. They're doing it to say, oh no, we have a D&I person. What's her name again? I don't remember, but yeah, we have her. She's around here somewhere. That's how some companies are doing it. But the second reason why sometimes they fail is the person who is trying to make the diversity hires is more concerned about diversity hiring than they are moving the business forward. And this goes to what Imi says. He says, sad but true. I can get tax breaks for hiring minorities regardless of qualifications. I prefer qualifications over race and gender. Does that make me mean, racist, or sexist employer? It doesn't. It means you're a small business owner who has to make sure that it's worth it for you. If you have, 100 employees and the tax breaks become valuable, you might check a box and say, let me hire 10 minorities on purpose because I'll make money on that. But if you've got 4, 5, 6, 10 employees, qualifications become critical. They do. So why would a small-time employer decide to hire someone who is Black or Hispanic or gay or whatever the case may be? I would hope because you see value in that person. That's what I would hope. And maybe it is literally because, you decide I'm going to start working in neighborhoods where people look different than I do. Now, again, I know someone's going to say, Larry, that sounds horrible. And maybe it is. Maybe it's a bad reason. Maybe it is. But I'd rather be hired for that bad reason so I can show myself and making me go, wow, that Larry guy, he's a hard worker. I hired him because he can get me into a certain neighborhood. But man, that guy's killing it. I'm glad. Hey, Larry, you got any friends? I do. I have several of them who'd like to also bust their ass for you and make some money. And boom, now we're rocking and rolling. So I don't think it makes you. I think it makes you human is what it makes you. I would hope you wouldn't say, if I have two people that are qualified, that I would only go to one because that's who my team is. Now, why would I not want to do that? Two reasons. One, it's kind of crappy if you do that. But more importantly, that for you probably is, if you would do something like that, and I don't think you would, but if you would, you'd be purposely ensuring that you're having not a diversity of thought when you could. And it's always better to have a diversity of thought whenever you can. So there we go. Yeah, Michelle agrees. Makes you smart. Absolutely. There we go. I just want to make sure that we covered that piece.
What strategies do you recommend to corporate diversity, inclusion, and equity leaders?
Now, this is how she leads the question off.
Who may be suffering from burnout from the challenges of this year?
She starts with, how do you deal with burnout? Because you're so awesome doing so many great things. This is not a biased interview. That's the first interview. You might as well start the first question. You must start the question. Hey, Tim, I want to ask you a question. How do you handle being so awesome and everyone wanting to be just like you, Tim? That's my first question. I mean, it's true. Tim is awesome. It's true. I'm just saying, but that's how I start the interview. That's kind of a softball question. I'm going to zip past that a bit, if you don't mind, because I don't want to hear her answer that dumb question.
My exercise up, all of that is like a fulsome approach to trying to not only maintain yourself, but to keep yourself clean, because this work.
You hear that? Keep yourself clean, because this work. When you see people there are many people in the coaching world who will speak this way. They'll say things like doing the work and being clean, don't come from this, blah, blah, blah. This is all jargon that means nothing. They say it and they sound smart and people go, but they don't mean anything.
Can be very traumatizing.
Okay, it's not traumatizing. Stop. That's not true. It can be difficult. It can be challenging. But if you're traumatized by this work, why are you doing it?
And you don't want to lead out of your trauma. You don't want to lead out of your sense of frustration. You want to try to constantly keep yourself filled and cleared out of the yuck so that you can really.
That, by the way, is a technical term, Michelle. Cleared out of the yuck. That's a technical term. You probably didn't know that. So I was clearing it up for you. Technical term.
Offer the energy that people need to change.
So let's talk a little bit more about that point you made about resources. Diversity, equity, and inclusion departments are often the smallest teams when it comes to budget and staffing levels. And yet these departments are responsible for influencing and creating systemic change within their companies.
So diversity now, that's a new thing, by the way. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Equity is a new change. That wasn't a thing 5-10 years ago. Now it is. That's the new thing. So now it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's where the force comes in. That's the worry.
What recommendations do you have for CEOs on how best to support their DEI team?
Yeah, so get some people,
But did you hear what she just said? She called it a DI team because the jargon still is diversity and inclusion. They've added the equity piece, but the jargon is still DI.
So it was interesting because, I have been on my own for 20 years working with organizations and really helping to advise them and consult with them. And it was a very difficult decision for me to decide that I would go inside another company. And one of the reasons that I decided that I would go to Netflix is because when I said, well, I'm going to need a team, they were like, of course, do what you need.
Yep.
And when I started the first year, I remember talking to my boss.
But I thought you said you weren't sure if you want to go. Stop. You were a consultant. You got an offer from Netflix. You were like, yep, I'm in. Of course you did.
And I was like, I mean, I think I'm going to need this. I think I'm going to need that. Okay, do what you need. Do what you need to be.
Now, let me ask you a question, a real question for any of you who've worked in business before. What kind of company, seriously, serious question, what kind of company would have a D&I person walk into a boss's office and say, I'm going to need all these things? And the boss goes, sure, do what you need. Go ahead. You have to be a massive company to say yes to that. No other company can do that. You know how many people are on her D&I team as of this video? 14. This is about 4 or 5 months ago. This is December, so 5 months ago. 14 on a diversity and inclusion team. 14. Who can afford 14 people who don't sell or make anything? I'm not trying to be mean. I'm being forward in a business model. What kind of company can afford to pay 14 people who don't build or sell? They don't make or sell anything. They don't even service clients. They don't service clients. They don't make anything, and they don't sell. How can you just 14 people who just literally make our job harder? And I'm not trying to be mean. HR in general makes your job harder, even though very often they provide a very valuable service internally, a very valuable internal service. But they make your job harder. That's a fact. So how can you afford to hire 14 people that make your job harder? Oh my God, you have to be massive and just go, yep, buy more stuff, do more stuff. You have to be $1 billion company. Otherwise, you can't afford it. And then when you get sued, you're finished.
Successful. And when companies are like, we want this, but you're not putting in the resources, that means to me that it's an intellectual exercise, but you're not really deeply into.
Now, this point, she's right. She's right. If there are companies who just go, I want to hire a D&I person because I just don't want to get sued. And that's true. She's right on that. 100%. That does happen all the time.
To it. And so the way we're structured is we have like directors that correspond with each of our business units, or what we call orgs. And
so you have cultural commissars in each, I'm not joking, cultural commissars in each division. It's the political officer of the Soviet Union. That's what she's saying. We have people in every business, it's political commissars. I'm not joking. That's the issue. So I know it sounds crazy, but yes, it's so funny. Sam says, so many people have been dropping streaming platforms. The new material has been overly woke and people are tired of paying for it. Disney took a hit after Gina, Netflix after Cuties. Yeah, that's true. You're right, Sam. And the idea of them trying to get out into other countries was a positive thing, but sometimes it becomes so woke it's unwatchable. That's true. And then, of course, it becomes less and less. So Paula says, cronyism is parasitic. Cronyism needs to feed on tax dollars to survive. Yes, Paula, absolutely. Yes. We talk about inclusion within the disability community in regards to accessibility, usability, inclusivity. It can be fascinating. Yes, it's true. And that other video talked about that, Missy. I could have kept it going, but they talk about people who are disabled, people who are having relationship disabled. It's a good thing. I mean, I'm not against it at all. As always, I'm not against the thing. I'm against the mandate of the thing, right? That's what I'm always against. I'm not against diversity. I love diversity. I'm against mandating it. That's what I'm against. But please, I think diversity is awesome. Just don't mandate it, right? Amy Dayton's company is different than Netflix. So they're going to have different reasons and different ideas on who and what they want to deal with and how they want to deal with things. Of course. Yes. So Danny says virtue signaling is cancer. People in society become so fake. Yeah, it says it's a signal that says I'm one of you, but I don't have to do anything. It's true. Diversity leaders, is there a college degree for that? Yeah, it's called the coaching certificate. I'm teasing, but it kind of is. Yeah, they're all just personal coaches. And then they just become this thing. So yeah, that's it. Wade says, do you think all of this focus on diversity hamstrings our youth character development? I think victim mentality creates a bias towards being a victim. I think there is a piece of that, Wade, and there is a worry, right? When you start seeing everything based upon race, you begin forcing people into a box. And when you force people into a box, then they think they have to be this. And I'm biracial, as you know. And for those of you who are biracial, you'll know what I mean when I'm going to say this, or who are actually multicultural, I would say. Biracial is probably the wrong way of saying it. Maybe multicultural is a better way of saying it. If you're multicultural, you'll know what I mean. When you are either biracial or multicultural, you go through identity crises throughout your youth. Sometimes into your adulthood. I was very lucky as I got into my adulthood, I'd kind of gotten past that. Most of my problem was in my teen years. And I also, as a young kid, I grew up in, back then, what we called the ghetto. Now you call it the hood. But back then in the 70s, you called it the ghetto. I grew up in the ghetto. Most of my friends, almost all of them, were either Black or Hispanic. And then as a teenager, I grew up on Long Island. Most of my friends were either white or Hispanic. So most of them were a total change almost overnight. So am I Black? Am I white? Am I city? Am I suburbia? What am I? And I had a lot of cultural issues back and forth. And when you focus on diversity with boxes, I'm forced to put myself in a box. And if you're multicultural, you know what I mean? What if you're, I don't know, half Jewish and half Christian? Are you Jewish? Are you Christian? How were you raised? What are you, right? And now you've got to put yourself in this box. And I found myself as a youngster very often trying to be the ultimate thing, right? I'm the blackest kid there is, or, you know, because I'm super Black now because I'm going to be Black, or my mother was German. I'm German. I'm more German than you are. I'm more white than you are. I mean, I became all of those things. And then I became nothing, and I didn't want to be anything. And I went back and forth as a troubled teen trying to figure out who I am. And I come to a point of being like, I'm just me. I don't care. And I'm proud of all my heritage, and it's all good. I don't care anymore. But that took time. As a teenager, I wasn't anywhere near mature enough, savvy enough to be able to do that. I couldn't do that. This type of thinking does it. And I see it in my daughters. I see how they're always kind of forced to be in a box. They actually wind up sometimes being, and as kids are rebellious, and if you have any teenagers, you know what I mean, they will sometimes be hyper-focused on one or the other. Like they'll rebel so much, they'll be extra racist because they're rebelling so much. I know that sounds dumb, but think about the youth, the TikTokers and the Instagram models. How many of them get in trouble for saying the N-word? It's like an epidemic. Why? Because what you're saying, Wade, they're either I'm the wokest of the woke, and I'm gonna check everybody, and I'm like the stereotypical nun with the ruler, and it's gonna hit you over the knuckles with the ruler whenever you say any bad word. That, or I'm gonna flaunt it all and do whatever I want because the hell with you. I think it's common for teenagers. Remember that one woman who got fired from Teen Vogue because of stuff she said when she was a teenager? Of course she did. And so I think your point's a very valid one, Wade. I think it is hurting our kids because they're forcing themselves to either go into a box they may not want to go into, or they're becoming like the thought police, or they're becoming the go to hell everybody kids. And all of that's going to hurt them in the long run. So yes, like be less white coat. Yeah, that is one of my worries, that we begin to alienate. It's a bad thing. So yes. All right. Let's see if I can go down here. Jimmy says, I do hope I see everyone. I do see hope in it when I hire. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. I agree. Look, I teach hiring. I have a class on how to hire, and I'm still wrong. Hiring's hard, right? I'm good at hiring, and I suck at it, and I'm good at it. So it is not easy at all to do that. Absolutely. So thank you. Yes. Denny says, burnout, lull, working 12-hour shifts on the third shift for 2 weeks straight. I wonder what the definition of burnout actually means. Well, it's traumatic, as she said. Not really. Not really. So Jay says, Larry, would you consider starting a show where you explain libertarian topics and debunk myths like Ben Shapiro's show? It would be so less of a conversation and it would grow your audience. Maybe, but I think a lot of people do that, right? I don't want to be another libertarian show. There's lots of them. And if you want that, you can go there. I'm trying to be a different kind of show, but maybe I would consider it. Maybe my team's watching. They'll bug me and tell me if I should do it. And then I'll just do it because I often do what my team says. So yes, let me grab a couple more of these if I can.
They also have a team. And of course, we're spreading all over the country every 5 minutes. One of the reasons why I said yes to Netflix is like, oh, you only have 4,000 people. That should be fine. I might even know these people by name.
4,000 people. You only have 4,000 people. Do you hear what she said? Only 4,000.
And then in 1 year, we doubled. And I was like, oh, stop.
Ah, that's why Netflix is having trouble. You can't double your population in 1 year and not have trouble. You can't.
And I really started saying to all of my leaders, and I was very, very frank with them. I was like, look, everybody has to be absolutely conscious about every hire they're making and everything they're doing as a leader, because if you don't, we're going to fall behind quickly because we're growing quickly.
Now, her logic is correct, right? Her logic, and you have to look at everything because you're growing so fast. That's savvy logic, right? And any good consultant would be talking that way. I do too. Fast growth is a challenge for any organization, small or large. But she's saying, you have to look at everything you're doing. Is she talking about a growth coach? No, diversity. So literally she's putting commissars everywhere. That is a problem. You're changing the culture of the company in a way that may not be good. You're going to wind up stifling some of your leaders. And that's a problem.
And I want us to not fall behind. I want us to move forward. And that's often a problem. Companies start getting bigger, they start acquiring other companies and so forth, and they don't pay attention to the cultural friction sometimes that results, and they don't keep their eyes on the numbers or on the representation.
See, and there's the piece. They don't keep their eyes on the numbers. That's the quota system. And that's the thing I worry about. I worry about the quota system, right? That's the issue. Now, Netflix just released their numbers, and they aren't bad, but they aren't great. There's still only about 8% Black, I think, if I'm mistaken, about 8% Black, about 8% Hispanic. So the numbers aren't bad for someone who's trying to become more diverse. Good for you, I guess. But you've had her for literally years now, and that means people are leaving, or you still can't find the right talent.
So that's one of the things I would say.
So, Verna, let's talk about the industry you're in, entertainment. Diversity and inclusion has been a hot topic for some time.
Yes, it has.
Each year, UCLA releases the Hollywood Diversity Report. Part 1 looks at film, and Part 2,
the Hollywood Diversity Report,
which was just released this fall, looks at TV.
Mm-hmm.
This year, both reports found that women and people of color are overwhelmingly absent in top studio positions. Mm-hmm. What's your take on this? And specifically, what is Netflix doing to hire underrepresented employees at a senior level and retain those employees?
Now, let me bring up what's actually happening in many places that some of you may or may not know. The idea that's happening is financiers, people who are writing the big checks now. You're seeing already, they have been seeing the value in women. They've just been seeing it. It's overwhelming. And I know it seems unfair that women have had to go through so much to show their true value and talent. And that's true. And it's unfair. At the same time, it's now becoming obvious. There are, and if those of you who are in finance, you know some people, ask around. They'll tell you. There are a lot of people now, private equity firms, companies, hedge funds, if angel investors, startups, if there is not a woman somehow on this team, if not the CEO or the owner are running it, they will not invest. Literally, nope. What are you, 4 dudes? No. But our idea, don't care. They don't care. No women? No. Because they don't think that the success rate is high enough without a woman. Because women-run businesses in today's world, startups particularly, women-run startups have a higher success rate than male-run startups now. That is where it is right now. And if you guys think I'm making this up, do your own homework. Ask. If you know any people in the finance, ask, and they'll tell you. With female startups right now have a higher chance of success. I mean, they fail too. Women are just humans. They also fail. But I'm saying percentage-wise, if I'm putting my money on something, I want the highest percentage, right? Of course, who wouldn't? Well, women got a higher percentage. I'm looking for women in my company. So that is beginning to happen already. So you do see a growth and a move towards that.
Please.
Yeah, so my take on this is that nothing is new, right? And both, because we're both entertainment and also tech, quite frankly, like there's no tech, there's no entertainment in the streaming world. And both of those areas are highly dominated by men and by white folks. And this is just what it's been. These have been exclusive environments with gatekeepers and or just unconscious ways of proceeding that cause that representation under.
The gatekeeper part's not really true. I mean, if you know the tech world, there's been some systemic things, that's true, but there haven't really been gatekeepers. Particularly for, if you look at the geek world in general, there aren't many gatekeepers. That's not really true. There's been cultural issues where it's like the white kid and the Asian kid, but that's been a cultural thing. That's true. But the gatekeeper piece, she's saying that because that's what people say. That's actually not accurate. If you don't think about the geek world, I'm a big geek. I know the geek world very well. There aren't really gatekeepers. I mean, in certain areas there are, but that's not really a thing. Is it cultural? Yeah, it's cultural because it just hasn't been the thing. But there hasn't been a physical way of stopping it. So, yes. Bruce says, better to have good outcomes for bad reasons than terrible outcomes for the best of reasons. Yes. Yes, Bruce. Thank you. I'm looking at outcomes. Absolutely. Yes, 100%. Tony says, I work better in the yuck. Stress-driven creativity does work. Sometimes it's true. I happen to like high stress too in general. I'm with you, Tony. I like high stakes. Why do you think I do everything live? I do everything live. I ran for governor, ran it all live. I like high stress. I do prefer to be there. Absolutely. Yes.
Representation to persist. So on some level, it's like, this has always been the case, but now we have people actually putting those numbers in front of us. And I think you will see that Netflix did extremely well as compared to other studios. However, you can't really rest on those laurels because is still way too low. And so.
But there's a problem here, right? And the problem is, say, for example, you decided that in certain instances, I'll give you an example, you would like it to be, you want everything to match your population as an example. So you would like all of the lumberjacks, all the loggers in America to be 50% women, right? Because it's not fair. Women should have access. Women deserve to be loggers also. I use the word deserve, right? There's to be loggers also. So let's go out and get some women loggers. Well, how are you going to get women loggers? Most women don't want to be loggers. It's just a fact. I'm not making that up, right? There are women loggers, but there's very few of them, not because they can't become loggers. Most women don't want to become loggers, so they don't. So how do you find them? Now, more women want to be in tech, but for years, many women didn't want to be in tech, but now more do. But look now in science, there's no quotas for science, but look at all the female scientists and what actually changed. For those who don't know the science world, some of you will get this right away. People always thought that science was like math and that math was like science and it was linear. And generally speaking, everyone believed, and to some point there is some true in a male-female brain, that it's a more linear thought process. A female brain tends to be more holistic. Is that culture, nature, nurture? Probably both, right? That a concept. But now they've realized, particularly since things like quantum physics and such, that science is holistic. It's not so linear. Math is much more holistic. It's not so linear. That attracted more women to it. Now watch a science show on TV. Anyone you want to watch, or on, TV, I guess I'm old now, on Netflix or wherever you want to watch it. Watch a science show. Watch the number of female scientists that'll be in that. It's a whole lot more. Because now women, I feel like, no, I'm respected here. You go back 30 years, they were a token. They were a checkbox. Of course. Now, no. They're like hiring women because they're brilliant and they're smart and they can do science. Duh. But that's happening now. So the problem is you want to make sure that there's access to everything. And I want women to be able to become loggers if they want to. And no matter how much we open up the logging field to women, it's never going to be 50% women. Women just don't want to be loggers relative to men. Sometimes when it comes to like tech, women, not every woman wants to be in tech. They want to be in film. Not as many. Some do. Not as many, but some do. So you're going to find that you can't force the issue. You have to make sure access is open to everyone. But as you know what I'm going to say, I'm against the mandate. I'm against the force. I'm against finding the numbers and forcing the numbers.
What we're doing is, first of all, our feeling and my belief is you got to start on the inside if you want the outside to reflect this idea of representation and equity, which is to say that by bringing in folks who've been underrepresented in the past, you are accessing different perspectives and networks and innovation and creativity, and you're breaking up that.
I think that's true.
So our first
that part's right.
Is
true.
always thinking about who's coming in, but as you also said, like, where are they sitting? And so I would.
Now you have a problem with the where are they sitting piece, right? And the problem you have with that is, how in the world are you going to bring in someone at a higher level, and they're Black or Hispanic or a woman or insert thing here, whatever the current other is in your plan. The people who've been here for 2, 3, 4, 5 years don't get promoted. And when they know the D&I was in charge of it, how do they feel? Now they feel alienated. Now they feel like, well, wait a minute, I've been here 5 years. That promotion should have been mine, and you gave it to insert other, whatever the other is, I think. You gave it to insert other. It's because they're the thing you wanted. They check a box. That's why. That can be very hard to deal with as a culture. So you really have to have a whole different way of hiring, a way of hiring that includes everybody and gives everyone a chance. And sometimes you have to accept you're not going to hit your numbers because you wanted to bring in a woman, say, and this one time, good women just didn't apply. They didn't apply for it. You need it. And the women who applied weren't good. It happens sometimes. And the only ones who applied were men. I guess you're putting a man there. Or are you literally going to wait? And if you wait, what does that tell the people who are sitting there saying, what about me? This is not an easy thing to do. And I think most people err on the wrong side, which encourages alienation.
Say that I'm really happy that if I look at the top 22 leaders in our company, many women and many people of color, I would say actually Black folks, we have a lot of work to do, I think, on the Latinx front. So does every company and institution, quite frankly. Women well represented. I think our leadership is like 48% women, right? And in the top 22, that reflection is there as well. So we're looking not just at the numbers, but where people are situated. And in particular, we have work to do, but we've made a lot of good progress in the content area. But in addition to that, we're doing pipeline work where we're. So
the worry I have is it working, right? Do I think that you could easily, out of 22 leaders, find 11 savvy, smart, talented women? Easy day. You could easily find 11 savvy, intelligent, qualified women to fill those. Easy day. Could do it. I could do it in 3 months. Well, that's what I exaggerate. I could do it in 6 months. I could fill those 11 seats in 6 months myself. I could do that. Would they all fit? And would I have success? There's the second piece. And right now, not looking good for Netflix, but we'll see if it's working.
Trying to look at who's in front of the camera and who's behind the camera, because one of these studies are suggesting that the folks who are behind the camera, if they're underrepresented folks, who you see in front of the camera are many more underrepresented folks. So what does underrepresented folks mean? Anybody know what that means? What's underrepresented folks mean? It means non-white males. It means non-white males. That's what it means. I'm not trying to be mean or nasty when I say that. I'm just saying that's what it actually means, right? That's what it means. So also straight, non-straight white males who are physically able. That's what it means. That's what it means. We've got things all over the world where we're like bringing in talent, getting to know people we didn't know, making it easier to get access to greenlighters, and our greenlighters are much. Now that's a critical piece, the greenlighters. The greenlighters are people who say, yes, you can do the thing. That part's critical because those are the people, those are the empowerers, right? The people go, do it, make it happen. That's critical. If you don't have diversity there, how are you going to have diversity in your content? You can't, right? How are you going to have diversity in your product if you don't have diversity there? That's a critical piece.
right? If I want everyone to enjoy, if I want to have so much content that no matter who you are, you can enjoy something on Netflix, if that's my goal, and I assume that's your goal, right? Because you want people to subscribe to Netflix, then you got to have a bunch of that.
More diverse than many other companies because of Netflix's strategy of having decision makers everywhere in the company. So you don't have to be in a particular role in order to make decisions about content.
So if you've just tuned in, this is HBR Now. Our guest is Verna Myers, VP.
Yeah, this is Harvard Business Review. Harvard Business Review.
Inclusion strategy at Netflix. If you have a question for Verna, please post it in the comments. So Verna, I'm going to ask you one more question before I bring my co-hosts in. Last week, NASDAQ filed a proposal with the SEC that would require listed companies to have at least one woman on their boards, in addition to a director from an underrepresented minority group.
There is where I have a problem. And that's what always winds up happening, is government gets in and sets laws. The SEC is a government organization. So now you are going to have certain people on your board. Have to, by law. You're literally saying, please hire tokens. Not a choice. You have to. That's what they want to do. And you would think, well, she can't be for that, can she? What do you think?
Here in California, starting next year, public companies headquartered in the state will be legally required to diversify their boards.
Do you hear that? If you're a public company in California, as of this year, because that was last year, this was December of 2020, you have to legally diversify your board. You have to. You have to. It's the law. Even though, this would just be crazy, Netflix is doing this. Other companies are doing this without any legal ramifications. They're just doing it because they're seeing the value in their companies to do this. So companies that are getting it are saying, you know what, we should be diverse. It's helping us out. Let's go do it. Let's find ways. We're choosing to do it. So government goes, oh, we can get away with this? Let's mandate it. Let's make it a law. And why would big business be okay with this? No, NASDAQ is asking the SEC to do this. Why in the world would a big company want to do this? Because only a big company can afford to. This is another form of regulatory capture. That's what it is. Only a big company can afford to do this. Other people can't.
Many leading companies, including Netflix, have found their boardrooms under scrutiny when it comes to representation. What's your perspective on the introduction of minimum thresholds for corporate diversity?
My perspective is it's too low.
Too low.
I mean, it's just too low. I mean, we already have research that suggests that you basically need 3 women to make it a real diverse situation. Because if you're only, you got to think constantly about what you're saying and how you're saying it, how it's going to be received. And that's the thing that I kind of love about
that's how it
Netflix.
works.
So we have E-staff, right, which is all the VPs. And when you're in a room that's half women, it's like you can say anything, you can do anything, you can have different opinions than other women. It's just so exciting.
So listen to what she says. When you have a room half full of women, now you can do all those things. Why can't you do it without half a room of women? Because your culture hasn't changed well. Because you still have the commissars in there worried about what words you say and the thing you said that was wrong or bad. You want to change environment. Sometimes you're going to be the only of whatever the other is. What happens if you're the only gay person in the room? You're the only trans person in the room. You're the only Hispanic person in the room. You're the only person who has a physical disability in the room. Very often you're going to be the only because you can't always be whatever all the people are. You have to have the right cultural environment. You can't just rely on, let's make sure there's a bunch of us so we feel safe. That's the wrong way to run a company.
Or when you're in a room with a bunch of Black people who are in the decision-making roles, you're just like, I don't even have to talk today. You talk. So I think it's too
That's what happens.
And if I look.
But do you understand how she just easily just said that? Well, there's a bunch of Black people. I can just say nothing because other Black people are talking for me. Is that how that works? I really hope that doesn't work that way. I've never thought that. Oh, There's 5 black people in the room. I'm going to shut up because they all speak for me. This is a problem. And she shows herself as she relaxes on what she's really thinking. This is not the right way of doing things. It just isn't.
At our board, I think we have 3 or 4 women. Yeah, we have 4 women, which I think starts to make a difference.
No, 1 starts to make a difference. That's incorrect. Someone's got to be Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson made a difference, right? And he was the only one, and he made a difference. Someone's got to start.
One person of color and who's black. And so we have more work to do. Let's just be clear about that. But I think we are already above almost all of these imposed kind of requirements. And so our work is just to push beyond that and also see if we can bring some folks along with us.
So I want to bring back Josh and Adi.
So to be clear, she was totally okay with laws that force you to do stuff. She was like totally fine with that. Like, oh yeah, of course, not enough. They should mandate 3 women, not 1. And they should mandate 50% black, not 1, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Of course you should do that. Yeah, that's where it goes. That's the problem I have every time. If you allow, and I know it's going to sound so bad when I say it, but I'll say it anyway. If you allow capitalism to work without crony capitalism, you will find most large organizations will begin to diversify on their own. They'll see the value in it. We're in a global society. They're gonna start diversifying. And we see it already happening. Netflix is the perfect example. And that's the worst part. She works for Netflix. They asked her to come on. Netflix is trying to diversify. And now she's behind government forcing people to diversify. When she didn't get her job because the government forced her, she got her job because Netflix said, we should probably try this. And she's now like the poster child for this. And she's okay with the government stepping in, which will ruin things for others. And here's the worst part. If you get forced to diversify, you will hate diversifying, and you will diversify begrudgingly, and you will have a bunch of tokens. How do I know that? That's what affirmative action did. If any of you remember, and it's partially true today, but not as bad. But if you look at the law firms in New York City, 80s, 90s, even today in some places, but they'd say, oh no, we have 10% of our 10% of our workforce is black. I don't see any black people. Where are they? Oh, they're in the mailroom. So they hire 10 black guys for the mailroom and say, we're diverse. Why? Because it's checking a box. That's what affirmative action does. But when naturally you see the value, you do it on your own because you want to. You see value and you just do it. And that's where people grow. And from that first video, that was where that woman said, here is where I feel valued. Here is where I'm accepted. Because they hired you because they needed you, because they valued you, not because you checked a box. And now, literally, Verna, who is a D&I person, she's falling back to quotas. You got to change culture, not quotas. People have to see the value in change and then voluntarily change it. This is saying people hate change. That is not true. People hate being changed, but they love change. We do different things all the time because we choose to. Yes, it's a libertarian value. Change because you want to change. Change because you think it's right. People love that. We hate when someone goes, you better change. That's when we hate it. And they're literally saying it's a good idea. And they come 2 more people just kiss her butt all day.
To ask some questions.
Hey, Renee, how are you? That was fascinating. I was actually really enjoying it backstage there, virtually watching you. It's great.
Thank you.
But I'm curious, that with the pandemic, it is such a challenge for all of us to work at home. In your work, I'm curious what the particular challenges and how you overcome them.
Yeah.
All right. They both start with just, see, you're such a great one. This is just I can't stand the butt kissing off the bat. You're amazing. You do great work, which we don't even know if it's a payoff yet, but it's fine. It's fine. Whatever. Let me grab a couple of these if I can. Paula says, I have had black colleagues who complain when HR would hire a large number of people of color whom they felt were not qualified, and they probably weren't. I've seen a lot of black friends, colleagues want to get recognized for the work they did and get promoted accordingly. They seem more concerned about having the minority employees get recognized as opposed to just going out and hiring a lot of minorities to make the company look good. As the whitest person in the room, I kept my mouth shut. See, you were the only sometimes. I think all of us have been the only, right? I mean, I can imagine in some way we've all been the only at one time. So yeah, Danny says, I'm stealing that one, Larry. You ain't woke because I know I'm the wokest of the woke. Exactly. Who's the wokest? I'm the wokest. You just kind of woke. I'm the wokest. Yes. Robert says, so many people are so insecure, and that's a big issue. You can't run a business with a bunch of insecure people. It becomes very challenging, Robert. You're right. You've got to be able to have people feel like they're hired because you need them. They're hired because you value them. That's why people want to stay with your company, not because, I need a Latinx guy or gal. Okay, I'll hire you for that. That's the wrong reason, right? And they're going to know it. They're going to feel it. It's just not going to work. Matt says, oh, good. Government tell you how to run your business. They're so good at running businesses. Matt, you're right. Oh, my God. Yes, absolutely. That's so good. Matt also says, my parents either raised me correctly or failed me miserably. I never treated people differently based upon race, gender, religion, etc. I was respectful of their differences, but never made decisions on them or anything other than their character. With the world today, I can't tell if I was failed or raised right. It depends on what room you're in, Matt. It depends on what room you're in. That's really what it means. Yes. Bernard says, maybe people need to learn how to accept different opinions and backgrounds. Thank you, Bernard. That's what emotional intelligence is about. That's how you fix this. That's exactly how. But just saying, you know what? Bernard is not me. He's going to think differently. He's going to think differently. He's got different backgrounds. Okay. So then he's going to think different things. Let's have a conversation. Do we have the same goal or not? If we don't have the same goal, then either I'm not communicating well to Bernard or Bernard doesn't fit and shouldn't be here. One of those two things is true. If we have the same goal, let's talk about how we get there. That's the most important thing. He says businesses should hire based on what's best for the organization. Agreed. And I think you see that. Netflix thought this was the right answer, and they're doing it. And hopefully they'll find out that it was true. I think the future will tell if they're right or not. So far, not so great because other streaming services are doing well too. Disney Plus took a hit when they decided to throw people out, not be diverse, right? They did the opposite. Well, they did diversity, but not in the way that I would think diversity is. You want to have diversity of thought. And clearly the woman from The Mandalorian had a difference of thought, which in my view is a good thing. Whether or not you agree with her thought process or not is actually irrelevant. As long as her goal was, how do we make the best TV show that people can't wait to watch? If that's what she was thinking, as long as her goal was that, then we're good. Now, if her goal was, and I don't know her at all, so I don't know or push some agenda for myself, then that's not a good thing and she probably doesn't belong there. But if she's like, no, I want to make a great show. And how do I do my part to make a great show? By the way, I also believe these things. She should have been fired. She should still be there. She should still be there. As long as her goals are oriented, it's fine. Sam says the most horrible part of all the DIE philosophy is the idea that all people who are the same race or same gender think the same. And diversity of superficial diversity of thought. Yes, that's her point. We're all black. I can sit back and say nothing. That's exactly right, Sam. Thank you for seeing that and saying that. You said it better than I did. That's why you can see her go, well, I can sit back. There's black people in the room. What are you all the same? If you're all the same, I only need one of you, right? If all black people are the same, they're not. But if they're all the same, I just need one of you then. The rest of you can leave. I got the black guy or the black woman or whatever the case may be. You're all the same, right? So she actually shoots herself in the foot with that one. You're absolutely correct. It's not the way it should be. It's just not the way it should be. So yes, anyway. Say it with me. Good ideas don't require force. Yes, Matt. Absolutely. Yes. Tim says it's time for a woke off. Let's do this. Let's do this, Tim. I'm going to get you. I'm the wokest of the woke. You're never going to be more woke than me. But to be forward, if you want to be woke, I'm actually not against you being woke. Be woke. Just don't force it on others. If you want a virtue signal and tell me, how woke you are and do all the right words, go on with your bad self. You're the wokest of them all. Love it. Good for you. Just don't force me. I'll even give you a medal or something if you want one. A little trophy. Bring you on a show. Wokest of the woke. Great. Just don't force others. That's my whole issue. Let me keep going. Watch. I'm going to skip past them kissing her butt. They're all just trying to say, see, I'm not a mean white guy. which is sad. They shouldn't have to do that, but they do, sadly. Did I lose it?
Out of this, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I think a lot of our work also is just advising our leaders, because we're asking leaders.
A lot of our work is advising our leaders. If you ever want to watch an interesting place, you can watch any of the places. One of them is a movie. It's not that great of a movie, but it's not bad. It's called Enemy at the Gates. And it's about snipers in World War II in Stalingrad. Ed Harris is in it, and Jude Law is in the movie. Have you ever seen the movie? And the Russians have political commissars who decide what's the right words to use and what to say and all those types of things. Political commissars. They just advise the Russian officers. That's all. Advise. It reminds me very much about this.
To do things and to understand things that most leaders were not asked to do or were not taught growing up in the leadership roles. And so a lot of it is us advising and setting strategies for them that include inclusive leadership and leading their groups. That's hiring, that's compensation, that's evaluation, that's like every aspect in practice. It's even like how you conduct a meeting. It's like whose voices you're hearing, how slowly you're speaking, what time you're setting meetings, knowing that we're all over the world. Those kinds of things require specific advice or coaching, and we're doing that as
I told you it's all coaches, right? It's all coaches. You ask, what kind of degree do you get? It's all coaches. Yes, it's all coaching. That's what it is. So David says, that's why you have so many people put their company under their wives' names. David, thank you for bringing that up. You're validating what I've been talking about. There are people who know that women are going to get a better shake right now when it comes to financing. It just is. So they're like, no, my wife runs it, not me. My wife runs it. And the bankers go, oh, the wife runs it? Oh, all right. Well, look at you now. Because they know the talent is female. It just is. Yes. Jay says, a few college campuses have done separate Black housing dorms. I'm all for racial equality, but segregated dorms is just racism disguised as equity and safe spaces. You are 100% correct. And that was my worry, right? My worry always is if you go down this road, you open up the door of putting everybody in a box. So what happens when you're, I don't know, half Black and half Asian? What happens if you're Hispanic but very dark? And the average person looks at you and thinks that you're Black, even though you're Hispanic. Maybe you're a dark Cuban or you're dark-skinned Brazilian, and people think you're Black. Do you go to the Black campus? The Black dorm? Or do you go to the Portuguese dorm because you're Brazilian? Or do you go to the Spanish dorm because you're, Cuban or whatever? Is that what you do? Do you have Cuban dorms and Mexican dorms because of different countries, different backgrounds? It can become a problem, right? It really can. And my problem is not the concept of diversity. My problem is where it can go if we allow institutions like government, like colleges, to take it to its, extreme, which is what we're seeing now. That's the problem. Paula says, my dad preferred to hire women, so they tended to be better workers and cause less drama to his experience. Not saying he was right, but he felt that way till he died. And a lot of people feel that way. And I don't know if that's true either. I have no idea if there's data to back that up or not. But that's what he felt. So good for him. That means he gave lots of women a fair shot. That's awesome. So yes. All right. Let's see if I can keep doing this here real fast. Geek rule number 1, geeks love girls and women. That's true. There's no geek gatekeeper going, ooh, no girls allowed. Yeah, like some 5-year-old. If you're a girl who just wants male attention and you don't care who it's from, join a geek club. You'll get tons of attention. It may not be exactly, because many geeks are have a lot of problems talking to girls. That's a common problem. So the odds are you might have some odd interactions. But if you're looking for male attention, there we go. Absolutely. Paula says, Larry, do you see the military following suit with this type of training anytime soon? Yes, already happening. Yes, already happening. Already in the process, already happening. 100%. Yes. Missy says, I would never want to think I was hired only to check a disability box. That's worse than just not being hired at all. Much worse. And I would say that people do that. That is a thing. That is a thing. Absolutely. So, Danny Ray Vargas says, I'm getting tired of this Latinx nonsense. A lot of people feel that way. I hear that constantly. I hear that very often. I'm not sure it's that good or not. So, oh, Jeff saw the movie. Yes, it was a decent film. It wasn't great. I'm not saying you should rush out and see it, but if you're kind of, running around, is it probably on Netflix or something? If you're on Netflix and you happen to like war movies, it's not, you won't be unhappy. It'll be like, yeah, good movie. It's not great. And yes, it is very loosely based on a true story. I actually read the original book, Enemy at the Gates. I read it when I was in, I don't know, high school. And it's very loosely based on that true story. Yeah, but it was a decent movie. The opening scene in Stalingrad was an amazing opening scene. So you'll at least like, if you like war movies. If you don't like war movies, don't watch it. It's not worth it. But if you like war movies, yes, it'll be good. Yes. So I hope that's good. All right, let me see if I can grab a couple more of these. Cano Jack says, by definition of being a minority in a country, it seems to me the probability of being a minority in any organization, well, seems very probable. It's true. It usually is. Usually is. Let me keep going.
Well,
so I'd love to ask, so we know that our readers are really interested in trying to understand how to create and sustain a diverse workforce. This is a moment where it's become kind of paramount, but I've lived through earlier moments where society generally said, this is a moment we have to do something about it.
Yep.
There were incentives created for managers to diversify their hiring. Somehow that it faded away in the past. And I get,
why did it fade away in the past? Why did that fade away? Do you know why it faded away? Because it was forced. What I just said. That's why it faded away. The recent inclusion of women into the workforce was not forced, and that's why it's permanent. You're not going to see all of a sudden less women in the workforce or less this. It's not going to happen. It's only going to get bigger and badder because it wasn't forced. People just realized, holy crap, there's a lot of talented women out there that we just weren't paying attention to. Yeah, look at them. We already knew they were talented men. We knew that already. We've known that for decades. Oh my God, talented women. That's awesome. Now I have more talent. I have more people to hire, more people to move my business forward. That's not going away. And they're doing just as good, if not better than men. And in startups right now, better than men in startups right now. Now that trend may change. I mean, that could go back and forth. Men by numbers could be beating women up back and forth. That could change. But the idea that women are all of a sudden not be entrepreneurs anymore or not be leaders or something, that those days are over because they weren't forced. What happened is the incentives they were given incentives just like Imi was talking about. Well, I can get a tax break if I hire a minority, but there's not talented minorities. So in where he was, obviously. So he's like, I'm not just going to hire some guy who's minority. I'm going to find a talented person. When it's not forced, it sticks. You've heard me say 1,000 times, the Libertarian Party, the Libertarian movement is actually about voluntary culture change. That's permanent, long-term change. Can I force it? Yeah. Can I go to any of you who hire and put a gun to your head and say, hire a black woman? Yeah, I'm going to shoot you. You'll hire a black woman. It's great. But once I put the gun down, you're going to fire her, or if she's not good, I mean, if you happen to find the right one, you'll be lucky. But odds are you just hired her because I told you to. So you're not you're going to fire her and you're going to hire whoever you want. In fact, now you're mad at me because I forced you to hire a black woman. Now, every time you see a black woman, you're mad because it reminds you of the one you had to hire under force. So I've just made you not want to hire a black woman now. Instead of saying, hey, here's all these cool people. Have you thought of trying to hire a black woman? And you go, I hadn't really thought of that. Okay, check it out. Oh my God, there's talent here. They can do the job that I need them to do. They can be successful and powerful. And now it's voluntary. It failed because it was forced. That's why it failed.
Yes. My question is, why does it fade away? And do you feel like it is different this time, that there's something fundamental happening that won't simply run out of steam?
Oh, that's such a good question, Adi. I mean, I'll be going back and forth about how I feel about this. I mean, I think about like when I was 8 years old, the night before I turned 8, Martin Luther King was assassinated. And again, our country was like, right? How do we stop the anger? How do we stop the fires? How do we, we'll do more programs. We'll do this. And I was a beneficiary of that. You know, I was a little girl in Baltimore, working class background. All of a sudden, there were pools, there were math enrichment programs. You could go out of district to your school. That got me to Barnard, that got me to Harvard, that got me here. But not everybody got out, right?
Yes. In fact, most people didn't because the culture didn't change. Exactly. A government program came in and the culture didn't change. We had a war on poverty and a war on drugs. The culture didn't change. So you got out. Good for you. I am happy that you got out, that you wrote your book, you went to Harvard, all that cool stuff. Good on you. That is, I'm very happy that you became successful. But it doesn't mean a government program can help everybody.
It was way too narrow. It was like the door barely opened. And that has been the work we've been doing. We've been doing this tinkering. What I hope is different about this time is that folks are coming up close and personal with the fact that we have normed one culture to the disadvantage and the inequity of other cultures and ways of being. And
you mean gangster rap culture? Because like every white kid I know thinks he's a gangster. Is that the culture you mean? Oh, you mean white people culture. I'm sorry, wrong one. I'm joking, guys. I'm teasing. But you know what I'm talking about. This is just utterly not true. It's not true.
That is wrong.
So this is the problem where she's incorrect. Look, when it comes to her idea of organizing organizations and such, many things she's saying are correct. There are concerns you have to worry about. But where she's coming from is wrong. She's saying we've decided that one culture is correct. First off, white culture is not monolithic. And many of you who are white know that. Italian American culture is not the same as, for example, Irish American culture. They're not the same. They may be similar because they're all American, and many of us are similar because we're American. There's similarities. They're the same. Of course they aren't. What if you come from England? What if your family is Scandinavian? It's the same as someone from Greece? All white? It's not one culture. That's not an accurate statement at all. So it isn't. And not just that. Our culture in America has been absorbed and been absorbing all other parts of minority cultures. Taco Tuesday is a thing in many white families. And in case you didn't know, tacos are Hispanic or Latin or Mexican, right? Clearly. It happens. It happens. There's a joke, if any of you remember the South Park, they talk about how white people, it's a joke to Chef, who those you don't know is the black character on South Park who is no longer there. The actor actually passed away. Isaac Hayes, who was the actor who played Chef. He was a black character on South Park. He was joking on how black people had to keep changing what things mean because white people kept copying it. So now we had to change what this means because white people use it, and this because white people use it. So we absorb all types of things. It's a common thing that we absorb all types of things. It doesn't exist. What she's saying now is just not true. This is a story that people say, and it validates their internal feelings, but it's just not true.
It's not just that we need to help these folks. It's that we are wrong if we don't, and that we are not.
Hold on. We need to help these folks. So you have to help every other culture, and we're wrong if we don't. This part I can't buy. Now, can you say we should? Yes, you should help anyone who's disadvantaged. You should, but you don't need to, and it's not wrong if you don't, and there should be no government force. But if you're asking my opinion, if Sam goes, hey, Larry, should I help people who are in trouble? I'm going to go, yeah, Sam, you should. But if you don't, I'm not going to put you in jail. But should you? Yeah, you should. But I'm just shooting you. I'm not arresting you. And we can shoot each other all day. I like that. I'm going to shoot all over you. We're going to shoot you all day. No worries. But I can do that. I can shoot all over you. But I cannot arrest you. That's the bad part. And there should be no punishment for it. It's not how it works.
Not only wrong, we're just missing all the sorts of possibilities and create.
Yes. Oh my God, she's right. So how about use the carrot and not the stick? That's my problem. She's saying we're missing all the possibilities. Yeah. Diversity is a wonderful, natural thing because there's value to it. So tell people that, show them that, be the example as I have been, and I'm documented on doing it. I try my best to be that example so that others will follow. I'm just not forcing them. And that's the issue. It's 100% true. So yes, Wade said she needs to visit Baltimore again. Yeah, I know. Yes. Michelle says, does she actually live in reality? No. The answer to your question, Michelle, would be no. She does not. She does not. So yes, I love that. Yes. So the government killed MLK, so she wants to give the government more power. Nice one, Danny. Danny also says, skin color does not equal ethnicity. I'm half German, half Puerto Rican. There we go. I'm also half German. But anyone who looks at me will assume I'm just white/European. Society has to stop assuming ethnicity based on skin color. 100%. How about we just don't even worry about it? Let's follow Michelle's idea. Let's just not worry about it. Right? How about that? Matt's idea. Let's just not worry about it. How about that? Let's just say I don't care what your skin color is. I care if you're a jerk or not. How about I don't care if you're half this or half that? Okay, all good. How about I don't worry about that? If I hunt in the right places for talent, I will have more opportunities to get people of diverse backgrounds. And so I will get them. And I will go one step further. I had a guy on the show maybe a month or two back, or 2 months ago, who brought this up. And he said, if I get two guys from the same place, even though one's black and one's white, that doesn't mean I have diversity of thought. I check a box, right? If I get a white guy and a black guy from, I don't know, Boston. They're both from Boston. They're both in the same neighborhood. They grew up together. They went to the same schools, went to the same college. And now I have them in my business. Am I really diverse? I mean, I got a black guy and a white guy. That's true. But how different are they going to think if they grew up together in the same area, went to the same schools? They're probably not going to think much differently. So I didn't really get diversity.
Creativity
so thank you,
and
Danny.
energy. And so I'm hoping that enough people started to understand
This
that
is correct.
neutrality is pretty much complicit with maintaining inequitable systems. Like you
See, she blew it. She blew it. She started bad with the forcing, but went to good, which was look at all the value. That was good. And then went to, but neutrality means you're complicit. See, if you're not actively trying to hire people who are different, you're complicit. No, I'm just living my life. I'm living my life. I don't have to win the woke-off. Tim, I've changed my mind. You can win the woke-off now. She has just turned me off a beat winning the woke-off. You can win. I'll send you a trophy. You're the wokest of the woke. It's not me. We don't need to do this. Right? And I try to. You see me up here talking about issues like this all the time because I want people to be able to discuss them and talk about them. I don't want people to not be able to discuss and talk about their concerns and issues. But this is making people because you're not working hard enough. You're not good enough. You didn't do enough. And that's a common problem. You're not doing enough.
Yeah, because we have a lot of people like, I'm just good people. I'm really nice. And they're very focused on the personal. And I love that people are thinking about their personal and their interpersonal relationships.
Yes.
But it's got to be systemic. And so
this I agree with. It's got to be systemic. So end the war on drugs. There we go. You could individually vote for libertarian and end the war on drugs. So how does it become systemic? This is the issue that drives me crazy. And this is where some of the things she's saying are correct. I'm not saying that her data is incorrect. A lot of her data is correct. Even some of her actions in taking care of an organization, they're correct. The problem is where she comes from is wrong. Where she's coming from is wrong. If you're going to say that something is systemic, that means you have to change the system. You can't say something's systemic and then blame the individuals in the system. That doesn't work. You can't go, oh, you white people have white privilege. Well, then who gives you white privilege if that's true? Well, the system does, right? So if you tell me it's systemic racism, okay, systemic racism, great. So change the system. You can't say, well, you like to what Danny said, be less white. But I'm not doing anything. I'm white. If I'm white, I'm black, I'm whoever I am. How can I possibly change that? I can't. What are you talking about? If I've got some kind of privilege, change the system. But what she doesn't then is she also has a privilege, which she doesn't want to acknowledge. You know what her privilege is? Harvard. I'm not joking. Harvard. That's her privilege. Do I hear her talk about that? No, she's proud. I got to Harvard, and that's why I'm Harvard Business Review, and I went to this great school. I went to this. Well, that's privilege too, isn't it? How about Barack Obama, President of the United States? Harvard. Yeah. Bush before him. Yale. Yeah. Trump. Wharton. Yeah. How about those? How about those? Is that your privilege? Now, of course, she would say, I earned it. Well, I'm not sure about that. I'm sure Bush didn't earn his. He was a legacy. So Bush didn't earn his. I don't know about the rest. Maybe others did. I don't know. Right? I mean, come on. Didn't Clinton go to Harvard too? Was Clinton Harvard? Clinton was one of those. Clinton was also the last person who wasn't was what? Reagan. I don't think Reagan was an Ivy Leaguer. I think everybody else was, right? And I think also, was Jimmy Carter the Annapolis? I'm not sure, actually. He might have been Naval Academy. But anyway, but these are all Ivy League schools. That's privilege, right? Drives me crazy.
When you talk about systems, you're really about changing power. You're talking about changing power. And that is where the rub is, where people are like, I want to hold on to this. I want to hold on to this dominance. And even whether they're saying.
Okay, so let me ask you, and I know a lot of my audience is white. Do you wake up in the morning and go, I just got to hold on to my dominance. I'm a male and I have dominance too. Patriarchy, right? Here's what I can promise you. I don't wake up in the morning going, I got to hold on to my patriarchal power. I have never done that ever. Not one time. I've never done that ever. Never I can't have these women around. I got to keep my patriarchy going. I've never done that once. I would hope that the audience that's watching that's white doesn't wake up and go, I can't wait to keep my power from these Mexicans and black people. I really hope none of you do that. And I would bet none of you do that. This is also something that's being said and imagined. It's not true. The average person, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, the average person just goes off and lives their lives. They're not thinking, I can't wait to keep my power. They're just, that doesn't happen. That's a fantasy.
It consciously or unconsciously, they're like, I like to be nice, but I don't know about this equity thing, which means you have to do more because.
No, it's not the equity thing. It's the blame thing, right? Yeah, Paula, thank you. Annapolis, I thought he did. Thank you. Paula puts out that Jimmy Carter went to Annapolis. I thought so. He was also, that's an Ivy League school, right? That's the that's an academy, right? It's the Navy Academy and then the Army Academy, right? The Army Academy is West Point. So yes, so he went to Annapolis because he was a sailor. I think he was a submariner, if not mistaken. I think he was a submariner. But yeah, so all these guys go to Ivy League schools. That's a part of privilege, regardless of where they come from. So yeah. But anyway, I'm sorry. Thank you for that, Paul. I appreciate that. No, my point is people aren't doing this. The reason why people get upset about equity is not because they think somebody's getting something. It's because they think you're blaming them for something and taking away something from them. They think people are getting something they don't deserve. They're not earning it, as someone said. That's how the feeling. So change that system. Change all of that.
The playing field isn't level. So you got to be like, what would I do differently? What schools would I look at differently? How might I change even the criteria that I think is essential? Like, have I really done an analysis about whether this criteria is essential and whether it matches the concept of excellence? Or
now this she's accurate with. This is a very important thing. And this is a systemic issue that I think anyone should change. And Paula, you asked me a bunch of questions. I'm going to cover that right now. You covered it. Larry, how do you advise small business to keep up with all this diversity, training, and outreach? I think people want to do all this, but what about the money to do this? That's my point. It's why now they're backing it, because only big business can afford this. If you are a small business, I will give you some advice. Hire someone, I'm not joking, to create an employee handbook. This is very specific for small business owners. You want to have an employee handbook that has all of this stuff in it. It's very cheap. It'll cost you probably a couple $100. If you get some insurance companies If they'll actually give you one or have a company make you one if you get insurance through them. If you get like your professional liability insurance from them, they'll literally just say, I got a handbook for you. And they'll change the name and they'll give you a handbook. Have a handbook, hand out the handbook to every employee, have them sign a sheet of paper that says they got the handbook and that they read it. I'm not joking, Paula. I'm very serious. A small business, if you want to protect yourself, get an employee handbook that has all this stuff in it. Give it to every employee you have now and who have had, and go through it. Make sure they sign it. One more thing, depending upon how afraid you are or how much turnover you have, anywhere between once a quarter and once a year, you decide, depending upon your turnover, have a sit down that's on the calendar that everyone's been invited. It must be on the company schedule somewhere that you have a meeting regarding the employee handbook. And you have a meeting and you ask questions about it and you go over it, either once a quarter if you have high turnover or once a year if you don't. Why? That's what they're going to look for when they go to sue you. I'm very serious. That's how you deal with it. But the next thing is, if you have a very good consultant who will do this for you, they'll actually go through diversity training for you. They'll explain it. They'll come through and talk about it. You'll learn it. They'll learn it. That's the issue. Remember the thing, though, whenever you get any diversity training, are they talking about individuals being different? Or are they talking about changing culture? Are they talking about learning everyone's specific issues and numbers? Or are they talking about emotional intelligence and understanding the other? If they're talking specifically about race and not talking about the other, they're wrong, because there's always an other. I hope that was helpful, Paul. So, yes. Let's see if I can deal with this. People don't like to talk about Ivy League privilege no matter what their race. Also true. Yes. Michelle says, oh my God, I hate that. Where's my privilege? You saw my house. Nothing great, but it's mine. I work for. I agree. Why would you even bring up privilege? It only makes people unhappy. That's all it does. It's silly. Yes. So Sam says, my first thought, 6 a.m. My second thought, coffee. Oh, so no, how do I keep my privilege? Thanks, Sam. I'm glad. Okay, good. So 6 a.m. and then here we go. Good. So Clint went to Yale. Thank you, Paula. Paula, you are on the ball today. Thank you so much. I know you went to one of the Ivy League schools. It was Yale, not Harvard. There we go. Yeah, so he went to Yale. So Trump went to Harvard, or was it Wharton? No, Harvard. Trump went to Harvard, right? I think he went, I forgot which one he went to. One of those, either Harvard or Wharton, one of those two. Bush and Obama went to Harvard. Bush and Clinton both went to Yale. Carter went to Annapolis. The first Bush also went to Yale. I don't know where Reagan went. So at least the last president since 1976, most of them, almost all of them, have been somehow Ivy League. So that's a form of privilege too.
Is what I'm doing preference, and a very narrow preference for a narrow set of attributes in identity.
Yes, and this goes back to the next piece that's about, Paula. You want to make sure when you're hiring from a wide pool. Matter. For two reasons. One, it gives you a bigger opportunity to get good talent, and it opens you up to having a more diverse talent pool, right? And the thing is, when you're doing interviews or phone interviews or resumes, if you get people from different parts of the country, different parts of the world, different ethnic backgrounds or religions, you'll see things you hadn't thought of. You're like, oh, that is important. Or, wow, why did I care about this thing? It doesn't actually matter. And you'll have better hiring practices. So,
and
helps.
Cultures and ways of showing up that is maintaining the dominance of a certain group. These are the hardest questions. I don't know how many people are up for it, but it seems like more people are. And so the question is, do we have enough power, influential people to change some of the ways in which they operate?
So she actually just said, do we have enough people who are powerful to force this issue? There, she's wrong. Culture change is what matters. That's why women have made such a big dent and are still making bigger dents in places where they had never meant it. And I think they'll get more. And I think we're going to have a bigger chunk of people moving around. I do have a worry, though. And the worry is at the small business level. If you make these rules and regulations so tight, Paula, what you mentioned, people are afraid of, right? Small businesses are afraid. I make one wrong hire, I get sued, I'm finished. It's the end of my company. And that's a big problem. If it's the end of your company, why would you hire, right? You can make to a point where people can be afraid to hire someone who's not the other because they're going to sue me and I'm going to go under. And we don't want that. So speaking of going under, don't let me go under. Patreon.com/SharpeWay. $10 if you like what I'm doing, $25 if you love it. Every month, help me out so I can move this forward. Keep doing this every evening and pick up more material. And you guys don't know this, I have a TikTok account. I also have a new Sharpe Way Clips YouTube page you can check out and just binge a couple of clips. Yeah, absolutely. I also have, but believe it or not, the podcasts are up. Yes, you can head over, click that link. There's a link in the description right now. The link tree, click that. Shows where the podcasts are. So if you just want to listen to this or tell your friends to listen to it, or like podcasts, listen to my old podcasts. They're all up there now, more and more popping up every single week. More and more. As always, like, comment, and share. And if you can, take that police accountability survey. It does matter. It makes my sponsors happy. It doesn't cost you anything, about 5 minutes of your time. Take it, finish it, and share it. But no matter what, like, comment, and share. Guys, thank you so much for this evening. Thank you for giving me a couple hours every evening. I love it so much. I hope I'm giving you some value, something interesting. I will see you.